this interview and presentation, we will meet up with Elizabeth Sharpe, who is a mom, wife, professor, parent, health educator, and marriage and family coach. She has been married for 22 years and has a 17-year-old daughter and a 5-year-old son, both with learning disabilities. She believes every child, teen, young adult, and parent can thrive with the right mindset, tools, and a community. Let's welcome Elizabeth. Thank you so much for coming in today. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for inviting me.
Awesome. So I want to start off by asking you, you're a homeschool mom and you have a daughter who's in what grade right now?
She's going to be a senior.
Senior, yeah. So why did you want to homeschool her? What can you share us your story?
Sure. Well, originally, I'm an educator in higher education, and my husband is a public school educator in high school. And when my daughter was in kindergarten, halfway through the year, she was at a private kindergarten, we realized two things. There were a few things that kind of stuck out to us. One was that time was going so fast, and I really wanted to spend time with her. And so I just felt that kind of time was moving. And that was calling out to me. The second thing is, while it was a really nice, very developmentally appropriate private school, I really felt like some of the values that were being taught were just not in line with our own core values. And at that time, I had met a lot of parents that were homeschooling their children. I'm from originally the Bay Area, and the Bay Area is a huge homeschooling hub. And I really noticed a difference in homeschoolers. I really noticed a little bit of more maturity. I noticed most of them were just a little different in a really good way. And that attracted me to it, even though I really felt that I couldn't do it and I felt that I would go crazy trying to school. I'm not a very patient person, so I didn't think I would do it. But we went ahead and took the lunge, and that's what happened. Here we are, senior year.
Awesome. But you did this while you worked, though. You didn't.
Always. I've always worked full time. My husband works full time. We've always worked and homeschooled, and I didn't realize that it wasn't really possible because I was doing it, and so I didn't really think much about it. Although one of the myths is that parents don't work while they homeschool, and that is just not true. I've actually mentored and coached single parents who work and homeschool. So they're all out there, all kinds of parents for different reasons in different situations that do homeschool.
Yeah. So what advice do you have for parents? Because we're now at that, a lot of families are at that place, right, where they're working and homeschooling.
Yeah. I think there's a couple of things that we need to really kind of fix right off the bat that I've learned, and I hope people learn from my mistakes. I always tell people I'm a great coach and great educator because I've made a lot of mistakes. And so when you make a lot of mistakes, you learn a lot. First of all, this idea that you have to replicate the school system. You have to not go into this thinking I have to replicate exactly the number of hours. I have to replicate everything they do in a traditional school system, because personally, between you and I, a lot of what's in a school system is fluff, what I call fluff. It's stuff that really is not necessary, whether that's my least favorite, a Halloween parade or a party or an assembly, or just these other things that really are not essential to what we're trying to achieve with our kids. So a lot of it is fluff. No offense to my educated teachers that are out there. I know you guys are doing a great job, but they have no control over the schedule, and much of it is driven by standards and mandates and things that really are not essential. So first thing is, you're not going to replicate the school system, nor should you try. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing is, when we work in homeschool, we aren't going to replicate the environment exactly as it is in a traditional classroom. We're going to do what works for the child, and I've always taught in what I call chunks and windows of opportunity. We've never sat between 9 and 3 at the kitchen table and done all the subjects in a row. It's never worked that way. It hasn't worked for my learner. It's all about, here's the time that I have, whether that's day, whether that's evening, whether that's weekend, whether dad takes a part of it, if dad is open to that. And dad can do, like my daughter this year, she's a senior. One of the things that she's learning is automotive, right? How to fix your car and when do you change? She just did her first antifreeze cleansing in her carburetor. I mean, those are homeschooling. And so the next thing is that everything is homeschooling. Homeschooling has an academic component, and I always tell parents the thing that's most important in homeschooling is reading, writing, vocabulary, and math, right? Those are the things that we want to make sure children become competent in their journey based on their level. And so that's 4 things. Notice I said that was 4 things, right? Reading, writing, vocabulary, which I could talk about why that's so important, and math. And I always say functional math. I'm not a huge, I'm a college teacher, and I'm not a huge advocate of higher level math until 1, the child is actually ready and wants to thrive in a higher level math. And 2, is that higher level math really necessary at the high school level? Exactly. Can they wait till the college level? Because in college, as we know, we replicate everything all over again, which is really frustrating to me that we would do it in high school and then we would replicate it in college. So I think that we want to get out of the mindset that I have to do everything public or private education does. And the story I always tell is that my daughter, when she was in 2nd grade, we were with a homeschooling public charter, and they were very standard driven. And one of the things in 2nd grade, I guess, in the state of California or maybe federally is you have to learn rocks, like the geology of rocks. And here I have this rock kit that they sent me, and we sat down to do the rock lesson, and my daughter couldn't care less. She couldn't care less. I couldn't care less. We don't care about rocks. Both of us don't care. And guess what? She's a senior now and does amazing things, and rocks really aren't part of her everyday learning experience. And for me, I couldn't tell you the difference between, granite and quartz, except I know what diamonds are, right? Because those are important for a woman. But other than that, I don't care, and nor is it necessary. So I think we have a lot of things in our education system that comes from a liberal education perspective that really is not necessary. So parents, chill out. Mm-hmm. And let's focus what I call them the 4 things that I think are the core that children need to master, and master it efficiently. And I believe in doing depth, meaning learning something really well versus learning lots of things not well.
Yes.
And so that's what I tell people who are doing any type of homeschooling, especially if you're a homeschooling working parent, to just focus on that core, and everything else, science, history. I'm an unschooler, so my philosophy is I believe that except for core subjects, children should choose their subjects. So one of the things I do with my daughter, I've always done every year, is I'll pull out, for example, the 4th grade standards in science, or in this year, the 12th grade standards in science. And I'll print it out, and I'll say, which ones of these are interesting to you? What do you want to learn about science? What do you want to learn about history? What do you want to learn about social studies? And most of the times those are related to current events or to really practical things that interest my child. And through that process, we're also doing reading and writing, and we're doing a lot of things. Yeah. So it really helps you have an engaged child. And it also takes the pressure that I must do every single subject that my state requires.
Yeah, it's very hard to do that. Exactly. Thank you. And you talked about one of the myths, I think, earlier, but there are more, right, about moms. Can you share a few more of that?
One of the myths is that we all don't work. Well, definitely that's not true. Another myth is that we're all highly educated formally, and every parent that homeschools is super smart in different ways. But most parents who homeschool are not formally educated, meaning they probably don't have a college degree. And so there's this myth that we have to have degrees. And I have coached and worked with hundreds of homeschoolers. I've been part of homeschooling community now. We're going on our 13th year, and most people aren't. Some are. I've met people who are doctors in homeschool, and they're actually doctors. And I've met high school dropouts and everything in between, because number one, if you build a community of support and there's a subject that's not particularly a subject that you want to teach, we can do lots of things. We can hire a tutor. We can take a class. We can have our children be in a co-op. I did that for, like, I don't really like teaching art, and I did teach some art, but I did a lot of art co-ops for my daughter where she did at the time that she wanted to do art. So there were lots of things that I didn't teach in the journey, and there were a lot of things I did teach. So it just depends on your skill set. So that's another myth. The other myth is that we want to keep how will our children ever learn real life experiences? And that's the funniest one, and the one that kind of gets on my nerves as well, is your child. My extended family really has trouble with homeschooling. They're very traditional. They don't think homeschooling is an option, and they, well, how will she be in real life? And this idea that homeschooling parents want to keep their kids in some plastic bubble and not expose them to the ills of the world. That's just not true. First of all, most homeschooling parents either homeschool because their child needs more time, or they need to accelerate learning, or because of values, or because they're doing things like acting or modeling. Or in my particular case, my child ended up being a competitive all-star cheerleader, and along the journey, that takes a lot of training time. So it really worked for us, where she can devote a lot of time to training. That is helpful. So my daughter actually just moved away across the country last year in her junior year, leaves with a host family, went knowing no one in Miami, and we're from the Bay Area at the time. And she manages her own budget, and she deals with a lot of conflict from cheermates, and she did theater arts, and she did Girl Scouts, and she's been involved. She serves in her church. She's done so many things. So this idea that they won't be exposed to real things is just not true. If that's important to you as a parent, you will find those things to do. She's dealt with conflict. People say, well, how will they be socialized? Well, whenever there's two people in a room, there's conflict. And she's done co-ops and theater arts, and there's been conflict in those things. And if you know anything about cheerleading, there's conflict in cheerleading. And she's had to work with many types of people, many types of ethnicities, many ages, and dealt with a lot of challenging things in her journey as a student and as a human being. So yeah, so that's another bit. One of the biggest myths is that children won't be socialized, and children won't know what the real world has to offer, and yet that's not true.
The opposite is true, isn't it?
Yes.
They're so exposed.
Yes.
The right ways, and it's always close to their interest.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So
Right.
it's very interesting. And you say provide the right mindset, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like providing the right mindset. What do you mean by providing the right mindset?
That's great. So there are three components that I always teach, no matter if I'm coaching any subject with parents, or I've gotten the privilege of coaching actually adolescents at one point, is that you have to have the right mindset, you have to have the right tool set, and you have to have the right community of support. And so mindset has to do with how we think about things and how we look at things. And everything in life is a mindset choice, meaning we have the opportunity to look at something, and the three components of mindset are our emotions. How do we feel about something? How do we make choices about things? And so our mindset is very much driven by emotion, and particularly for women, very much driven by emotion. And then we make decisions based on that emotion. And sometimes that is correct, and sometimes it's not correct. So for example, one of the mindsets that people are think about negatively about homeschooling is that my child won't go to college, or they won't be ready afterwards, or maybe I just want to homeschool for a year, and will they be ready to go back into traditional classroom? And that's the mindset around that is false. It's not an accurate mindset. It isn't consistent with the research. It isn't consistent with what really happens. And so we have to make a choice to say, well, if I choose to homeschool for a year or forever, my child's going to be prepared, and I have to find the right tools, meaning the right classes or the right tutoring or the right curriculum or the right structure that works for us, and then find that community of support, other homeschooling parents who have had success with their children, to give me support or advice in any way. And that's what I did, because in the beginning I didn't know what to do, and I sought out those parents to mentor me and to guide me. One of the things that I do is you should definitely join a homeschooling local group, both national groups, regional groups, and then there's local groups in your community to provide that. And so this mindset that my child will not be successful in life because they're not in a traditional structured classroom is really just a false mindset. So that's one of the many mindsets, but
Yes.
that's the most important in homeschooling. And homeschooling now more than ever has more resources and support ever. Many people have been homeschooled. One story I tell my students all the time is that Mark Zuckerberg, dropped out of college. Bill Gates dropped out of my alma mater, Washington State University. Mrs. Fields Cookies, who has a national cookie chain here in the U.S., was a high school dropout. And we could go on and on and on of children who've either dropped out of school or didn't have the right credentials. But what they did have, those individuals who've done great things, is the right mindset and the right tool set. And so that's what it boils down to giving our children the right mindset and tool set around what they need to know for whatever you feel is important for your family. And I think that that's most important.
Yeah, very, very good. So you do a class for parents, which you help them get their kids and teens to focus and concentrate, right?
Yes, I do that. It's focus and concentration, increasing focus and concentration,
Yes.
which is really important in anything that we do in life. I think one of the myths, there's two things about children that I really believe, children and adolescents, not just children. And this is based on research, but it's also based in my own experience and my also mistakes as a homeschooling parent at different times and seasons with my own daughter. And that is that all children want to learn. There isn't a child on earth that comes into this world that doesn't want to learn. Okay, that's the mindset you as a parent need to really, my child wants to learn. Okay, if they're not learning, we have to ask the question why, right? And the second thing that is very consistent is all children want to please the adults in their life. All children have a high internal need to please their parents, their teachers, their coaches. They want to please the adults in their life. Even adolescents, believe it or not. The biggest myth is that adolescents just want to rebel and they don't want to make anybody, and that is just not consistent with the research, and no has it been in my experience in working with my own child and with adolescents. So we start from that premise. Now, if they're not doing well in school, in life, at work, then the question becomes, we have to go on a strategic hunt of why, since we know all children want to learn and we know all children want to please the adults in their life. And one of the areas that people miss is focus and concentration, meaning they don't understand that focus and concentration is a skill set. It doesn't come naturally to every human being. It is something that we have to learn, starting from when we're born, and different things developmentally will affect that, and different environmental factors will affect that, and different physical factors. So I do a whole training on what are those factors, what are the things that we need to look for, because if a child's having trouble concentrating and focusing on the things that they need to do, then we have to try some different strategies and look at the environmental factors and figure out which one is affecting my child negatively. Even for adults, it's the same thing for adults if you have trouble focusing or concentrating, which I can't imagine any adult that doesn't at some point in their life.
Mm-hmm. I'll let you explain little about the how behind that presentation.
Yes.
You do in a little deeper way. So going forward now, you are on a mission.
Yes.
Happening. So tell us about your mission.
One of the things based on my own story, so through my journey, I'm a first generation college student. I went to college. I'm a college teacher. I teach child development. And through my journey, one of the myths that we continue to replicate in society is that go to school, get good grades, go to college, and everything will be okay, and you will be successful at whatever it is that you do. I think that is one of the biggest myths we sell children. Am I saying people should not go to college? Absolutely not. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that I've learned that school did not help me have a successful marriage. I have a divorce under my belt. My husband and I almost ended up in divorce course again, but we just celebrated our 22nd wedding anniversary, and that's how I became a marriage coach. Right? One of the things that I thought is that when I began homeschooling, that my daughter would just learn and she would do workbooks and this would be so easy, and it wasn't. It wasn't. And along the journey, we learned that she had 5 learning disabilities, and she was a different kind of learner, right? And so school, my own training, I have a master's degree, did not prepare me to deal with my child in any way, shape, or form. Okay. Number three, homeschooling is about your own character. And so I wasn't patient. I am not a patient person. I'm an impatient person in recovery. I tell people all the time. Um, um, and so I had to learn how to keep the heart of my child, meaning I think the biggest number one goal we have to do as parents is not to ensure that our children get straight A's. It's that we keep the heart of our children so that we can influence our children in their life's journey, because we know better and we've been through the journey, but they won't listen to us, especially adolescents, if we don't have their heart. So I had to learn that, right? I had to learn, how do I keep the heart of our children. Nobody taught me how to be financially free. Nobody taught me how to do a budget. Nobody taught me what debt was. Oh my God, it got me into so much trouble that I'm now learning to dig myself out of. I wish that would have been something that people taught me. And the last thing is, nobody taught me what my calling and passion was. I got a degree. I thought I was going to be a counselor. Little did I know that counseling mental health, while I love components of it, is not what I'm wired to do. And we don't teach children to live out their calling and passion. We don't teach adults to do that. And I learned that homeschooling can be a vehicle to do that. And so my mission is to give people the right mindset, the right tool set, and the right community in order to excel financially, to excel parenting, to excel in marriage, to excel health. I became a health coach because I avoided a hysterectomy. They wanted to do a hysterectomy on me. They wanted to give me a bunch of drugs. And I said, no, that's not okay. And I learned to heal my own body. And so that led me down that road. And so I believe, and now I am, a homeschooling coach. I believe that people need tools. They need the right mindset. They need tools that are simple and easy and effective. And they need the right community of support. And so I think that whatever you want to do in homeschooling or any other area, if you have other people that don't get what you're doing, you need to not talk to them about it, because my extended family, my husband's extended family does not get anything that we do. They don't understand homeschooling. They don't understand holistic living. They don't understand the values that we really want to impart in our child. And so you have to find that community. So that's my mission. Whatever area, find the right mindset, find the right tool set, find the right community. And part of that is finding a coach or attending like the functions that you do, conferences and webinars, to learn tools, real tools that might be helpful to you as a parent or a spouse.
Yeah. And what it allows the parents is education, right? Like you get educated on this. You're not alone.
Yeah.
Another thing is, you're not alone. You've got all these people on the same page as you. Everybody
Yes.
has the same worries.
Yes, every parent has the same. And the other thing is, one of the biggest myths is that you have to have a degree in something to be competent in something. No, you don't. Now, sometimes you need a degree to get that job, right? Because that's the way society functions. But I am a holistic health coach. I can tell you 5 hours of health. I'm not a doctor, and certainly I would never replace a doctor, but I can certainly educate you on how to, build natural immunity, which is another topic I love talking about right now, given that immunity is on everybody's mind. But again, I've learned more now than I actually did in college. I tell people all the time, the degree is a tool that allows me to teach in a college environment, but it isn't what makes me a good educator, and it isn't what makes me a good homeschooling mom, because I knew nothing about homeschooling. And the last thing is, I wasn't perfect. And so the other thing that freaks parents out is you don't have to be a perfect homeschooling parent. There were weeks where I don't know what we did. I think that I tell people, take it one day at a time. One of my homeschooling mentors said, you only have to be one day ahead of your child. And that has been always my philosophy. You only have to have one day of curriculum plan. That's it. If you have one day of curriculum plan, that's it. You are ahead of the game. They don't know that. They don't know that you only have one day planned. And I think that that is the biggest myth, that we have to be super organized. Are there those parents who organize 30 days in advance? I know them, and I love them and hate them all at the same time, but I'm not that parent. And so, and my child, has some amazing skills, both academically as well as to deal with real life, which I think in the end, that is the most important thing. Can my child function in society in real life?
Absolutely. You brought one thing that I want to touch on is comparison.
Yes.
That needs to stop, because that's what
Yes.
drives everybody crazy.
Oh my goodness, yes, I did it. I did it to my child when my daughter was young, and we found out she was dyslexic. We compared, will she be successful? I'm an educator. Her dad's an educator, and it was a learning thing. If you compare your homeschooling journey to anybody else's, you will fail. Okay, and if you compare your child to anybody else, you will fail. Even among siblings, I have a 5-year-old as well. Even among sibling sets, comparison, I always say, is the thief of joy, right? If you compare what you're doing and what you want to accomplish, the most important thing is, what do you want to accomplish with your child? Because that's your child and that's your family. And my family is different than somebody else's family. And sometimes there's crossover, but don't compare. I think you're right. It steals so much from the parent-child relationship, but it also steals from your own peace and joy about what you're doing in life. And with Instagram and social media, the negativity can be that you're looking at people and you're saying, oh, they have it all together. Let me just tell you right now, I'm on Facebook. That's where I do my stuff. And I know lots of people on Facebook personally, okay? And I've coached these parents personally and marriages. I can tell you, I'm not going to name names, what they're showing on Facebook is beautiful and true, but I know that what's behind that is a lot of challenges, and I'm not going to out them because of confidentiality, but Facebook is not or Instagram, a picture of what really is happening with families or the homeschooling journey, right? So please don't ever fall into that trap about, oh, this person looks like they have it all together, they're a perfect homeschooling mom and they're planning all these things, and I just stink. No, that's not what's necessarily always happening.
Yes, yes, I agree with you. And in life too, right? Not
Yes,
just homeschooling.
yes,
Our lives are always changing and there's going to be
yes,
challenges. We can't just
yes.
look like picture perfect. Yeah, for sure, 100%. So you host a homeschooling boot camp.
I do. I have a
Awesome.
homeschooling boot camp on, let me say, the August 22nd is when I'm doing it. It's from 9 to 1 Pacific time or Canadian time, 9 to 1. It's 4 hours. And the purpose of this boot camp is designed for new homeschoolers or maybe those who are not as organized. And what we're going to do in 4 hours, it's a small group coaching environment via Zoom. And what we're going to do is we're going to plan your whole fall semester. We're going to deal with scheduling and discipline and curriculum and choosing curriculum if you haven't chosen any curriculum yet, and community support and homeschooling groups. And you're gonna leave that 4 hours and you're going to have a written, detailed plan on the how. How am I going to do this and what are the next steps, so that you can feel some stress go down. If you're overwhelmed and you're like, I don't even know where to start, I don't even know where to go, and that's what I'm doing on August 22nd. In 4 hours, we're going to get the fall semester done.
Very good. And will you have this repeating afterwards?
If there's enough demand, absolutely. If there's a wait list, because I'd like to take just 6 because it is a small group coaching environment. I want to give individual attention to every single person. It's not like a lecture. It is a working meeting. It isn't like you're going to sit there, listen to me for 4 hours and leave and not know what to do. No, we're going to work and write and type and do some research. It is definitely a working. If there's a demand, I definitely would be happy to do that, or can do one if you have some friends you want to do it. Let's say you have 3 or 4 of your really good friends that are homeschooling and you're all a little stressed right now. I definitely can do something that's tailored to a community that you're involved in, or just a bunch of friends who want to do it together. I'm definitely open to that as well. And then I have a homeschooling and non-homeschooling support group. And so I have a group on Facebook called Successful Parents, Successful Teachers. And in that group, every Monday night in August, I do a free training. And I also provide resources and information. And also we'll be bringing guest speakers in there to speak on specific topics that I may not be as versed in. And so it's a place for you to come and learn and also ask questions. This is what I tell people. In there, I'm your private coach. So if you ask a question, I'm going to answer it for you. And it's a great place to go.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you so much for coming in today. This is awesome to have all this knowledge from you. Amazing. Thank you.
All right. No, you're welcome. And I just, my last words of encouragement is you can do this, whatever you want to do. If you have a calling in your heart to either distance education or homeschooling, just keep your child home for a short time or a long time. Know that you can do it. You really, really can. But make sure you reach out. This is a wonderful, conference and opportunity. Reach out and never believe that you're the only possible one struggling with whatever you're struggling with, because I have learned that everybody is struggling in something right now and always will be, because like you said, life is a journey and it gets complicated and there are seasons of different things. And so that's how I've done it. I can't believe my child's a senior. She's going to graduate this year. It is it's gone by so quickly that I can't believe we've reached this stage in life. And she's successful, and a success that's defined by her, a success that's defined by us. And always define your own success. Never compare it to anybody else, because your child's unique. Your children are very, very unique, and you're their parent, so you can do it because those children are yours. They're not anybody else's.
You're their cheerleader. You're their cheerleader.
I'm their cheerleader. That's what I do with parents. I cheer them on.
Yeah, and here for your kids too, right? For
Absolutely.
if you have not provided her the right environment, that's what I go by, is providing the kids and the right environment. Look at how she is now, right? Like if you had follow those labels you got for her, like, she has this or that, and left her in the school environment, she wouldn't have got all this fostering, this atmosphere where she can just grow.
Absolutely, absolutely. And has there been challenges for her? Absolutely, like any other adolescent. But teaching your children to overcome those challenges and teaching your children how to work through that is homeschooling, right? It's part of being a homeschooler. And when we talk about homeschooling, everything's homeschooling if you really think about it. And even if you send your child to traditional education, there's still a certain amount of homeschooling that should be occurring around other topics that the educational system is not equipped to cover.
In this presentation, Elizabeth Sharpe will share with you how to get your kids to concentrate and focus. Let's watch her presentation.
So I wanted to talk about focus and concentration because it is an issue that we all have to manage and navigate with our children, okay? So I would like to tell you that in 20 minutes, I'm going to solve this problem for you, and that probably is not the case. So the goal is I'm going to bring awareness to some of the factors that affect focus and concentration in children and teenagers, okay? All humans, myself included, in different seasons may struggle with focus and concentration. And there's two premises that I always start with children. And this is my philosophy across all issues with children and teenagers, okay? Number one, all children want to learn, okay? There isn't a child on this earth or a teenager that does not want to learn, okay? There is no child or teenager that does not want to learn, okay? Now, that doesn't mean that all children are motivated to learn, okay? And that's a different question. So all children want to learn, and we know that because from the moment children are born, they are just super excited to learn, okay? And if they're not learning, we as educators, and I consider parents educators, whether you homeschool or you send your kids to private school or public school, it doesn't matter to me. You're still a teacher as a parent. You're still the primary teacher, and you're still a really important influence in the life of your children, okay? So when I use the word educator, I use it all the way around, however is pouring into the life of children, okay? So all children want to learn. That's the premise I will use for every training. And number two, all children want to please you as the adult in their life. Children want to please the adults in their lives, including teenagers. Believe it or not, the research consistently supports that even teenagers and pre-adolescents want to please the important adults in their life, whether that's their parents, whether that's their the teachers, whether that's their foster parents, whoever's raising that child, they want to please them, okay? So you as the parent or the teacher need to always start every situation that you're trying to solve with your kids, the kids in your life, is all children want to please the adults in our lives, and all children want to learn. And if you are struggling with focus and concentration or any other issue,
it is not because that child is trying to make your life miserable. And it's not because that child is trying to make things difficult for you. Is there such a thing as rebellion and defiance in children and teens? Absolutely. But at the bottom and root issue of defiance and rebellion is what I call a root issue. Okay? That there is something else underneath the behavior. So when we're looking at behavior of lack of focus and lack of concentration, we need to not focus on the behavior. We need to focus on what is the root issue behind the lack of focus and concentration. Because I hate to, I know you guys are parents and you can, I guess on here you can't do little hearts and stuff because I'm doing it on a laptop, but you can post in the comments. Children and teens are very focused and concentrated about things they like doing. Okay, so and so are you. Let's just be real. We're not much different than children and teenagers. And so if they're not focusing or concentrated when you need to, whether that's in school or whether that's, in other situations, then the question becomes, how are we going to bring that out in them? Okay, so here I'm going to throw really quick at you. When you come to these lives, bring a piece of paper and a pen or something to write with. I'm going to throw some factors and I'm going to focus on two of them. Okay, because all of these, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, there's 7 factors I listed, and that all affect focus and concentration of children of any age and teenagers. Okay, number 1, physical health. Physical health, I'm a health coach, I'm a certified feeding dynamics instructor, which means I have coached people on feeding issues of all ages. Health. 80% of our health is in our gut, okay? And if our gut is not healthy, then that affects our brain power, okay? When your gut is not doing well, it's going to talk to the brain. The brain and the gut are always talking to each other, okay? And so gut health is key in focus and concentration, and the research around children and teens continues to support that we have children and teens that have very poor gut health, and if there's special needs, they have certain special needs, and if they have learning disabilities, even more so, okay? And if they're boys, some of you have boys, even more so. And I can't get into all the details, but I will do an intense training on focus and concentration if enough parents want to do like an hour or 2 hour real training on that, okay? So gut health is really important, right? So it is important that we feed our gut and feed it well, right? I know you all know this because every parent wants their children to eat well, and I've posted a few things, and next week we're going to talk about food next Monday night, and we'll talk about what makes a gut healthy and how do we get some healthy things. But it's the obvious. A couple of quick things is please get rid of cow milk, dairy in your child. Animal milk, it does not do well, just really quick, in a child. Cheese and all of that. It really negatively, and obviously refined sugar really jacks up gut health, and also processed food. Okay, so I don't want anybody to feel guilty. I realize that we are all busy, and it's all about baby steps. Development. So the other question around focus and concentration is, are you expecting too much from your child? Are you expecting too much in terms of focus? With all of this virtual schooling, my 5-year-old will not do virtual anything, okay, just so you know. He will not get on and learn. His teacher tried in the spring when he was in pre-K. Didn't work. It's okay. So are they able? We expect children to sit or focus for long periods of time, and the reality is adults cannot focus for more than 30 to 40 minutes at a time. That's adults, like full brains and everything after age 25, right? Because the brain is not done developing until after age 25, just so you all know, right? You're not a full adult from a physical perspective until your brain, the frontal cortex, finishes developing, which is responsible for good choices, right? So it is important that we realize that little ones, right, under 8, they are pre-children. They are not full-fledged children yet, and they may not be able to focus for a long period of time, okay? So don't expect too much from littles. I believe in breaks. I believe in something called a visual timer, and I didn't bring it with me, but there's these things called visual timers, and sometimes when it is good for littles especially, but also I use it with my teenager as well. It is important to visually show children how long they have to do something because they don't understand time, right? And so visual timers you can get on Amazon or you can get them at Lakeshore are really helpful in showing children how long something is going to take, okay? So we need to really realize that developmentally, children may not be able to sit, and children under 5 typically cannot sit for long periods of time, maybe 5 to 7 minutes, not really long period of time, right? So we really want to not expect too much from children, which is why I don't take 5-year-olds shopping with me, and I don't take 5-year-olds a lot of places, because my son can't hang in a lot of different things, which leads to environment. So then the third thing that may be affecting focus and concentration is the environment. If we're talking about whether it's school or whether it's getting them to do things around the house, is the environment set up appropriately for that child? Some children do well in bright lights. Some children do well in light lights, right? Not a lot of lighting. Some children do well with noise. Some children don't do well with noise. Some children do well sitting. Some do well standing. So one of the things we need to realize as educators is that different things function for different children, and we shouldn't expect children to all do homework or study or do a task in the same way, because it may not work for them. And so I always love giving children a lot of freedom in choosing where to do what they got to do, whatever that is, as long as they're not bothering anybody and as long as they're staying on task, right? So you may have to work with your child, and depending on the age. Now, if they're real little and they don't have that vocabulary or that knowledge of what works best, you might have to try different things. If they're a little older, 7, 8, 9, 10 and above, they may be able to talk that through with you. Where do they do their best work or focusing? And it might be outside. People who are natural, what we call, naturalists in terms of learning, outside is way better for them, okay? And so maybe that might work really well for them versus inside. So it just depends, and you have to play around with that, okay? I'm trying to keep this, really, short, so I'm going to book through these, but ask questions and I will answer the questions, okay? Stress. Stress really impacts focus and concentration, and young children as young as 6 weeks old can be stressed out. We have a lot going on in the world right now. There is so much going on in the world right now. And our children, and in the classroom as well as outside the classroom, they feel that, and they can sense, they may not understand that there's stress occurring. If you're having particular issues, if there's fighting at home, right? This is why, married people, take it outside, right? Take it somewhere where kids are not listening to it. They're going to respond to stress. Many children are, depending how you respond to the coronavirus will determine whether your children are stressed about the coronavirus. I mean, that's going to affect their stress and concentration. Are they worried about school? Are they worried about moving? Are they worried about all kinds of things that they may, especially the younger the child is, you haven't given them a vocabulary to talk about this stress. So it's important to utilize books. I love utilizing books with little children on stress and challenges. Even with older children, assuming they like to read, you can also use, there's a lot of really great stuff on YouTube. I'll post some stuff. Children have stress. You may not think they do, but they do. Are they toilet training? One of the most stressful things ever is to learn to feed yourself and toilet train. Are they moving schools? Are they concerned about online learning and they hate online learning? There's a lot going on, you guys, and I could go on and on and on. There's so much going on, and more than ever, this is a stressful period for a lot of people. So we need to realize that if children aren't focused and concentrating, then they may not have an outlet. So you have to find a way to be able to have that dialogue with your kids, whether that's pictures, whether that's reading, whether that's songs, ways for them to be able, excuse me, to verbalize how they're feeling. And so I always say, go on Google and Google a children's feeling sheet or a teenager's feeling sheet, and get them to be what we call emotionally literate, right? The ability to express how I'm feeling. And no matter how they're feeling, don't tell them they're not feeling that way. If a child says, well, I'm worried about going to school in the fall, let's just say that one, right? Don't answer, are you ready? Don't say it'll be okay. I know you're trying to be helpful, but if that child is feeling stressed, we need to process that. We need to say, well, tell me what your concerns are. Tell me how you're viewing this, right? Don't tell people not to be stressed when they're stressed, right? We need to process, and every stress at every age for children and teens is okay. Right? It's okay. All right. One thing I forgot to say in terms of development is, remember that hormones play huge into this. So if you've got children 9 and above, we're dealing with a lot of hormonal issues from ages 9 and above. So anyway, that's why Monday we'll talk about health, right? Because we're dealing with hormones as well. And a lot of us are women. We understand hormones, right? Whether you're in the years of having babies or perimenopause or menopause, been through all of those. You all know hormones, and so children are no different, all right? And Yesenia wants some oils to calm her child. Yeah, let's talk about that. So a couple besides food is essential oils. And everybody who knows me knows I'm a huge essential oil fanatic, right? I'm a fanatic. We use essential oils for everything in our house. You name it, we use it, right? And not just any essential oil. It's got to be a really high quality. I only believe in 2 brands. So hit me up if you want a brand. But you want to really find high quality, pure, certified therapeutic grade oils, which means food higher than food quality, right? And so, Yesenia, let's do some. My favorite for focus and concentration is frankincense, right? So frankincense is an amazing focus oil because it brings oxygen to the cells. And that means that when we can't focus and concentrate, it means we don't have enough oxygen in our cells typically, okay? Frankincense is amazing. Lemon is amazing as well, and very mild. And so you can either put oils in a diffuser and diffuse it in the environment, or you can put it underneath their feet and at the base of their neck, which is if you feel the back of your neck, the little triangle in your neck, that's the skull of the brain, and you can put the oils there, right? Again, high quality oils. Don't be putting nothing on your body that isn't high quality, right? And you didn't get these at Walmart. Don't get them at Target. Don't get them at the dollar store, okay? So you want to use really good qualities. Hi, Marina. Nice to see you, honey. So, so oils are a wonderful non-toxic way versus medication, right? And Monday we can talk a little bit more about medication. I'm not super pro medication unless someone's dying, okay? So there are a lot of things we can do with food and essential oils to heal the gut, to get people to focus. And I use oils to focus myself, and I use it on my little one. Another one that's really is lavender. Lavender can be either make you go to sleep or it can help you focus. It depends on your body chemistry. I find that in my son, it helps him focus. And also Roman chamomile can also be sleepy or can be focus. And it just depends. And if you are a big fan of doTERRA, they have a wonderful child's focus blend, and I don't know what it's called right now. And they also have another blend for maybe teenagers and adults called In Tune. So they have really, really great focus oil blends already pre-mixed for you, ready to roll. Okay, so those are a couple of my favorite, and hopefully you can get your hands on some of those. All right, moving on. Interest. The other thing why children and teens don't focus is they're not interested. Can anybody laugh about that? How many things do you focus on that you're not interested? Children have interests. And guess what? The older they get, the better they're going to tell you, I'm not interested. Now, that doesn't mean that they don't have to do the things they have to do. And so we want to figure out how to motivate them, right? We want to make sure that we motivate them to do things. And a couple of things, the visual timer really works. And then I'm a huge fan of the love and logic model of discipline. Because I'm going to talk about discipline is another factor, and that is, look, I get you don't like math, right? Maybe math is not your favorite topic in the world. Well, how do you want to do your math? Do you want to break that up? Maybe you have 6 problems, let's just say. And do you want to do all 6 in one shot? Do you want to do 2 and then 2 and then 2? Or you want to do this and then do this and then come back to the other 2 problems? In other words, the math is going to get done, but maybe we need to break it up a little bit, right? Because again, depending on stress or interest level or environment or development, we're going to have to figure out what is going to work for that child, right? And you're going to have to try a couple things. It doesn't always work on, the first shot. Okay. Last thing is learning styles. Okay, let's talk about learning styles. Learning styles, you have to know your children's learning style and your learning style. Why is that important? What is your learning style and what is the learning style of your child, okay? A learning style means what is the best way that we learn, okay? So, learning styles means a child may not have interest and focus because you're not teaching and this also includes like teaching chores and, anything you want your kids to do around the house or anything like that. You're not doing it in a way that is their best learning style. We all learn visually, auditorily, kinesthetically, and sensory, meaning we all learn either by seeing, by hearing, or by doing, or by touching, okay? And so all of us have a preference, and the reason you want to know your learning style is you're going to tend to discipline and parent and teach based on your learning style, and maybe your child has an opposite learning style, right? In my house, everybody has a different learning style than me, right? They don't do me, right? I'm auditory, so they don't do me. And so I had to learn as a homeschooling mom, as a parent, as a teacher, as a wife, that, my husband has a different learning style. My daughter has a different learning style. My son. So I got to do stuff. Mamas, we're like motivators in our house. Like that's what we do, right? We're called to motivate. So we got to figure out how people learn. And so maybe if your child is a auditory learner, right? They may need to learn something by listening versus seeing or doing, right? And maybe instead of reading a book, maybe they need to listen to a book versus just, reading it, right? Maybe they're kinesthetic, hands-on learners, right? And that means that they need to move when they learn or when they clean or when they are doing stuff. So we got to do a whole training on that. There are a lot of strategies, and you can just Google kinesthetic learning, teaching styles or that kind of thing. Let's say you want them to clean their room. So maybe you need to have them clean up their room and they're not cleaning up their room and they're not really motivated to clean up their room. But maybe if you had a visual chart or if you color coded the bins or if you labeled things with pictures on them, especially if they don't read yet, you have to set up the environment, but you also have to set it up in a way that meets their learning style. Okay? Kids want to do well, but maybe they just don't have the appropriate environment that's set up within their learning style. Maybe they're sensory. They need to touch things, right? They need to sit in a comfy chair that's super comfy because the hard chair makes them fall asleep. And that is really true. We had my husband's office was upstairs and we had this awful chair and we never found a new one. And then he wasn't doing anything upstairs and he wanted to go upstairs because it was quiet. Well, then we moved it back downstairs and we put a different chair and it was comfier. And now he's like working down there. I'm like, why didn't you work upstairs? Well, it had to do with the chair. Okay. And that sounds silly, right? A chair, but definitely that might be like the missing link, right? To that. And then the other thing that I didn't mention in terms of environment is what time do you want kids to do stuff? See, just because you're a morning person doesn't mean that they're a morning person. Just because you're a night person doesn't mean they're a night person. You have to figure out what time do they focus best? What time are they more open in terms of concentrating, right? We all have different times of the day or evening, depending on who you are, to concentrate. For example, teenagers and pre-adolescents, they've done all kinds of brain research. They tend not to focus prior to 10 a.m. Okay, and there's been a lot of movement in trying to get schools to start later for a lot of kids, and particularly teenagers, because they tend to operate on a whole different sleep and awake pattern. And you can just Google, there's a bunch of articles on this. And so that's why a lot of teenagers like to stay up late. And the reason they want to stay up late is because they're a whole different body rhythm that's affected by hormones, that's affected by development, right? And so then if your child, if you want them to do something, and every time you try to make them do something, it's just like, maybe it's the time of day or evening. Okay, you have to kind of think about what that works for them. All right, so I mentioned physical health, developmental health, environmental markers, stress, interest, discipline, and learning styles. All right, I know that right now figuring out what to do for school just really sucks. Okay, I'm just going to say that. I realize that there's virtual options, there's homeschooling options, there's going back to school option. And I just want to say, number one, please don't stress out. And here's what I mean by that. Okay, let me tell you what I mean by that. Your child is going to be okay no matter what you choose. All right, that's number one. Okay, because children respond based on how we respond. Okay, and so if we're freaking out about what we're doing in the fall, they're going to freak out. But if you help them cope with what's going on, if you help them figure out a solution and a game plan for what's going on, then they're going to persevere and overcome whatever it is. There are no easy answers this fall, especially for us working parents. I've worked in homeschool my whole life. I get it. Make a decision and go with that. And if the decision does not work, then you can change that. At any given point in time, it is okay to change something that's not working. And then one more thing, I always say lastly, but I always lie because y'all know I'm a college teacher and I can talk forever. So the last thing is we have a lot of concern about COVID, and I get it. I get it's a real virus, and I get it exists, and I get for some people it can be extremely dangerous. But I also believe that I'm a type A personality. Let's focus on the things we can control. And you know what we can control? We can control how much madness we watch on television, because that's going to affect our kids. We can control how to build immunity in our bodies. And if you want me to do a training on immunity, I'll do one. How to build immunity in our bodies and in our children's bodies. And that's what I've been doing with my 2 children. Number 3, we can control our thought life and what we think about everything. And being in fear and madness does not help you as a parent or a teacher, and it doesn't help your littles and your teenagers. All right, because our children are taking the cue from us about how they should be responding to the world and to our current academic fall situation. So please, 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 please breathe, put some oils on, have a bath. We shall overcome fall and spring. We will get through it. Remember, it's going to be okay. You don't have to be perfect. It's all about intention. Have a great day.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Take care.